All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Stormwater Utility Board meeting. Today is September 2nd, 2020, and we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the June 3rd, 2020 meeting. Are there any questions for the staff regarding the minutes?
No.
No.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as reported?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. All those in favor of approving the minutes as reported, say aye.
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 Opposed, if any? Okay, great. The minutes approved as reported. Next up is public comment. So I'll turn the time over to Mr. Cannon to open up public comment and let us know if anything comes in, and we'll wait a minute to see if there is.
So far, you guys have nothing. And not to break your hearts, but it looks like nobody's watching.
Well, it is a Wednesday night, so.
Yep.
Well, let's close public comment now. If anything does come in, we can reopen it if necessary. Next on the agenda is the approval of invoices. Are there any questions or concerns from the board regarding what's been reported?
I don't have any.
Me neither.
Staff, is there anything you need to update us on regarding the invoices, or is it pretty self-explanatory based on what you previously provided?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. We're continuing to do kind of our reactive maintenance repairs. So most of those things are maintenance repairs that we're doing. The white construction is the continuation of the Avon Heights drainage improvement, which is we've done a final punch list, and they've reached out to us and told us they're done with that. And so it's 99% of the way done. So we're wrapping that project up, and it turned out really nice. So other than that, I don't think I've got anything.
Okay, well, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the invoices?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seeing that there is a motion to approve invoices, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, if any? Okay, motion carries, invoices approved. Old business, I see that there is nothing listed under old business. Moving on to new business. Number 6A, budget. Turn the time over to staff to discuss this matter.
Yeah, this is kind of your guys' first glance at the budget. And so we'll probably talk about it again later, or if you guys have input, please feel free to provide me any. This is pretty much exactly the same budget as what we submitted last year. Really the only change, and we actually reduced the overall budget a little bit. And the result of that is the capital improvement. So if you guys recall, in the capital improvement plan, you guys approved basically a slate of proposed improvements to do. And so those change every year. So the amount of the capital improvements changes a little bit. So I think last year we were at about $1.6 million. We were between $1.6 million and $1.7 million. And this year we're down a little bit to $1.5 million. This will be our last year. If you guys recall, we had 3 years where we were going to be spending a little bit more as a result of trying to eliminate some of the backlog of capital projects. So this will be the last year of doing that. We're bringing in about $950,000 of revenue a year. So when we're approving a budget at $1.5 million, we're spending down that fund balance, which is basically the money from the county that we got from the relinquishment of the legal drains. So this will probably be the last year of that. And then our capital improvement number will come down quite a bit following that. So other than that, pretty much everything's exactly the same. Our billing has gone up slightly as a result of some postage increases, but it's really nominal. I think it's 2 cents per mailing. So it's not a significant impact to our overall cost for billing or anything like that. So other than that, we've pretty well flatlined all of our expenses, and that's really all I've got unless you guys have some questions.
Now, thanks for the explanation and background. How do you feel going into next fiscal year with your projected projects? I guess in other words, do you feel like we're in a pretty good spot? Because again, we ramped up, a very extensive list of projects that needed to be done. As you pointed out, there's going to be a reduction in budget next year. But do you feel like we're going to be able to finish the projects that you want or that we need to get accomplished this year before we see that reduction next year?
Yeah, good question, Mason. So actually, Alex will maybe talk here in a minute under other business. We're behind on a couple of capital projects. Alex has been working on Cobblestone, which was our big project this year. We haven't bid it yet, but we're getting close to being ready to bid it. So we may bid it this year, but it may not actually be constructed until next year. So that may cause a couple of our capital projects to fall a little bit. COVID didn't help as well because some of the research that Alex needed to do, we didn't have access to when we were closed. So I've not been able to give Alex some of the things he needs to be able to continue some of the analysis and the study that we've been doing. So I think if anything, you'll see that we're actually this year, even though we had $1.7 million budget, we're still not going to spend anywhere close to that. So our fund balance is going to kind of push back. So we may find that in 2021, we'll still have a bigger budget and we'll still be addressing some of those capital projects. But so far, we've got a really healthy fund balance. The utility's doing well in terms of collecting revenue. So I think we're in good fiscal shape, and we're progressing through our list of capital projects pretty well. So hopefully we'll get a couple of these other ones in the pipeline here, and we'll kind of continue moving on.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, Ryan. Are there any other questions for the staff?
I have no further questions.
None.
All right. For purposes of this budget, do you need any particular action done? Ryan, do you need us to approve this?
Hey, Mitchell, the town council approves the budget, is that correct? Or does the storm board? Can you refresh my memory?
I believe it's the storm boards, and then they just report it to the town council.
Okay. So do they need to approve it before the town council approves the budget?
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, if you guys are comfortable with what's presented and you're willing to approve it, that would be fine. If you don't, we would probably have to have a meeting in early October to approve it before the town council approves the overall budget in early October. So it's up to you guys. If you're comfortable with it, go ahead and approve it. If you want to look through it closer and do a quick meeting in October, we can do that as well.
Okay. Kurt, Lindy, what are your thoughts? Do you feel comfortable moving forward this evening, or would you like more time to look at the budget?
Well, I guess a question for Ryan, just so I understand. The 1.5 proposed for next year is less than what we've had. Some of the 1.7 for this year, the cost will be flushed into next year potentially due to some of the delays from this year.
Correct, yeah.
And then our revenue is still, for the most part, steady from where we've been.
That's correct, yep.
So since inception, we are still on target from the initial 3 going into year 4 plan from your perspective.
We are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully what our goal will be is that we can bid these projects yet this year. And then what we'll actually do is we do what's called encumbering. So we'll grab the money from this year's budget, which is what we did with the Avon Heights project, because we actually bid that last year, if you guys recall, but we didn't get started till this year, but we grabbed that money. So that actually looks like you expend the money in the fiscal year before. So it'll look like 2020 that you spent that money, even though you don't really spend it until 2021. And so that's kind of how we address that. And so I think maybe what you're getting at, Kurt, is does that expense of what we think we're going to spend next year end up in next year's budget? And that's how we try to avoid that from happening. And if it ultimately we can't, like let's just say we can't bid it, then we would probably just come back to you guys and ask you to do an additional appropriation, which would allow you to increase the budget as a result of that project. And there's a process we need to go through to do that. But it is something you guys can do if we find out we need more money in next year's budget. There's still a mechanism to allow you to increase it.
Okay, and a kind of a follow-up to that for either you or Alex, for projects bid this year but not completed until next year, would there be any potential for significant construction cost increases?
Alex, you want to take it? You want me to answer?
Yeah, not that I would think so. I mean, we ran into that, I know, a little bit on this last Avon Heights project, just because of an extended delay for utility relocation. We are planning to get those out of the way. We expect some on the Cobblestone project here yet this year, so that'll be part of the remainder of this year to get those utility relocations accomplished, but still potentially bid the project so that it would be within the same time frame that the contractor would anticipated at the time of bid, so you wouldn't see that increase then for any kind of a cost increase for the following year. They would bid it knowing that they probably wouldn't start it until maybe after the first of the year.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, gentlemen.
we'll address it with our time set, Kurt. So we'll tell them they won't be allowed to start until next year. And then that way that gives utilities time to move and we don't incur those delay costs.
Sure. Thank you. That's all I had, Mason.
Thanks, Kurt. Lindy, do you have anything?
I feel comfortable approving it.
You do, you said?
I do.
Well, do we have a motion to approve the budget as reported?
I don't think I can make a motion, but someone else can.
I can, and I'll make a motion to approve this budget.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
if any? All right, the budget as reported is approved.
Thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Next item is 6B, stormwater collection policy. Turn the time back over to Ryan.
Yeah, so we've talked about this for a while and we kind of need to get our collection process put into place. And so there's really two separate parts of our collection policy. One is kind of the upfront piece where we can kind of be proactive and send letters. And so I think you've got in your packet a letter that we're proposing to put into as part of our process with our billing company, where if there's a certain period of time where someone goes without paying, that we would send them a notice. It's kind of a softer, gentler, hey, can you please pay? And that would kind of be the upfront piece. And I kind of need to tie that in. And then you also have a collection policy that Mitchell has drafted, which is kind of after the fact that, all right, we sent you a nice letter, you still didn't pay your bill. Now we're going to go through the legal process of liening your property and attempting to collect our money a different way. And so it's kind of two different pieces. And so I kind of wanted to give them both to you guys and to think about it. Our collections are better. We're doing a little bit better. But we still got to put some kind of a policy in place. And so, like I said, I'd like you guys to think about that a little bit. The other piece that I wanted to talk to you guys about was our late fees. So obviously the two biggest things we have to encourage people to pay their bills is our ability to lien their properties. And then the second is us charging late fees. And in particular on the non-residential properties, just to remind you guys, what we did was our late fee is 10%, but it's capped at $5. And so in talking with our billing company, they think we should modify that $5 cap. 10% is pretty consistent with what other utilities do. But that $5 cap in particular, for example, like CSX, CSX's bill is about $20,000 a quarter. Well, they went 5 quarters without paying their bill. Well, that really only, there's no incentive for them to really pay when their late fee is only $5 each quarter. And so if you guys recall, when we kind of put this in place, we kind of said, well, let's see what the $5 cap would do. We really put the $5 cap in there because we didn't want to hurt the residential customers as badly. So that's just something we may want to think about, that may create a discouragement from people not paying their bills before we get to the process of actually physically having to lien some people's properties. So I may have Mitchell walk you guys through that a little bit, or Mitchell, would you mind talking about kind of what you've drafted a little and talk about the lien process and how that'll work so they kind of understand that?
Yeah, so what we've drafted is simply just more measures to incentivize through kind of punitive damages people that are not paying their charges. So in addition to the late fee that Ryan just described, this also takes advantage of provisions of the state law, which states that we can put a lien on an individual's property for the fees that they haven't paid. And the process is laid out in Section B of the policy, where we are provided them notice that they're delinquent for 60 days and that we intend to file a notice of delinquency and intent to file a lien with the recorder's office. What that would do would make it superior to all liens on the home, except for if they're delinquent on their taxes. After that, the board can, if it wants to, either make motions or develop this policy a little bit further on when to actually foreclose on that lien and require a sheriff's sale of the home. And then at that point, again, unless there's outstanding taxes, the sheriff's sale, we would be the first people to be paid out for those liens. I can say that practically what generally happens is most people pay this, and then if they don't, they typically file bankruptcy and their mortgage gets foreclosed on anyway. And we get a notification during that mortgage foreclosure that we may have an interest on the property, and we can submit a notice to the bankruptcy court saying we would like to be paid based off of the distribution that the bankruptcy trustee and the bankruptcy court finds reasonable. That's kind of how it happens in the practical terms. Now, again, unless the fees are getting really out of control, the idea of foreclosing on someone's home for a $24 lien, I guess that's a policy for you guys to consider, but it really occurs when it keeps getting delayed and we filed multiple liens that start to become in the $200, $300 range. That's when you start to see the mortgage foreclosures, because if they're not paying their stormwater bill, it's generally not out of disrespect for Ryan and the town. It's more of they're not paying any of their bills. So that's what this policy does, is just lay out the fact that we can file a lien on their property if they're not paying their fees and late fees. And that would also go for attorney's fees and the cost of filing the lien. And then that can sit on there for 30 years. I think the statute says it can sit on there for 30 years and then it can be renewed for another 10 years. So you can sit on it as long as you want. But that's how that process works. And if you go further down the policy in the very last section, we put in there that the board can write off a penalty that's less than $40. And that just goes back to the fact that, frankly, it's going to cost significantly more to $40 to get a lien in place and try to collect on them that way. But the lien process is it's just a little bit simpler way. Instead of going and knocking on their door and sending telephone calls, we just send them this letter. If they don't pay, we just record the document. And if their house ever goes up for sale or ever gets foreclosed on, then we get paid that way.
Thank you, Mitchell. I want to hear from Kurt and Lindy, get their thoughts. I could see this being something that we want to take some time. I'll just speak for myself. I would like to have some time to look at that a little bit deeper now that we've got, had Mitchell's, and Ryan's further explanation. I'd be interested in taking some more time offline to consider what's been proposed and perhaps come back to the board with some, and the staff with some suggestions or feedback. I also have a hard stop at 6, so I want to make sure that we're not rushing this. But Lindy, any initial thoughts, concerns, and then turn time over to Kurt following?
Well, yeah, I was reading through the packet right now, and the letter that we're going to send out or thinking about sending out. And, the letter it's self-explanatory, looks good. But yeah, I'd like to have more time to look at the section 9-41. And it seems like, a $5 late fee, as we're just talking, that it helps the residents, but when you have big businesses, it doesn't deter them. So it seems like we need to do something more. But as to exactly what that is, I'd like to think about it more and read through it. And if we have any other suggestions, think about that as well.
And I will interject a little bit. And Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we put the $5 cap in initially just because we didn't really want to get into a whole bunch of late fees when we were just trying to figure out how we were going to collect from everybody to begin with. And so we just kind of threw that in there as a placeholder. And I think we were always kind of considering revisiting that. Is that what you recall, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that was definitely our discussion. Was we kind of said, well, let's start small and see what the reaction is. And we didn't know how many people would pay and how many wouldn't pay. So I think we had talked about kind of a slow rollout and just see how it went. So I think that was the starting point. We kind of said we'd reassess after a year or two.
And also,
So-
I think you could get away with having different caps for the different classifications.
That's what I was going to ask. And I think that I agree with Mason and Lindy. I need a little more time to consider everything, but I would like to know if we can have different dollar amounts for the different ERUs that they fall into.
Yeah, perhaps Ryan, I feel the same way. So let's do this. Why don't we put this on the agenda for our next meeting? We'll all continue to digest it offline, individually, obviously. But if you have time before the next staff meeting to put something like that together, what Kurt just mentioned, different charging structure or percentage, either a dollar amount or percentage based on ERU. I think that's something that we'd be interested in learning more about.
Absolutely. Okay. Yep. We'll keep working on it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the work that you guys have put into this. Really appreciate it. So we should be able to make a decision when we meet next, once we have a little bit more information. All right. I think that does it. Is there any other business or walk-in items that we need to discuss before we adjourn?
I think Alex was going to give you, Alex, can you do a 1-30-second update?
Sure. I can give you just a quick update. The first project, capital project from last year, the 100 South and Stratford of Avon one, we've got a little bit of warranty work there that we might want to have that contractor come back to do. So we're going to get with Morphe Construction to come back under the warranty period here and do some erosion remediation issues that are happening down there on 100 South. For Avon Heights, we've already kind of touched on that a little bit. The project's essentially done. We've created a punch list. The project looks pretty good, and we need to go back through and just kind of review their actions in relation to the punch list that was developed, but that's nearly done. Cobblestone, we have a preliminary design put together on that, and we're going into the utility coordination phase to try to get those done, and with the hopes of having those utilities relocated and bidding the project here yet this year. Raceway Road, we do have a couple of options on that. We'll be meeting with staff to kind of go over those. But that's another project that we'd hope to bid this year and potentially construct. It's a very small project. So that's something that we'll need to talk with staff about, but that should be a smaller quoting process, not a public bid process due to the lower dollar amounts. And then there are 2 or 3 investigation neighborhoods that, as Ryan mentioned, they're pulling together some information for us on that. We're going to be reviewing that to kind of go through our initial study phase here and make some recommendations either on further study that might need to be done or some sort of a project that might come out of it next year. So, and with that, I'd entertain any questions that anybody might have.
Lindy, Kurt, any questions for Alex?
I don't have any.
No questions.
Alex, thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Hey, Alex,
Yes.
just curious, do you know if is there possibly any, summaries of those type things or bullet points? I just made a few notes just in case people ever ask, like cobblestone's been something that's brought up on the council level in the past, but by any chance, are there any notes or anything on that I could keep in mind?
I mean, I could put together a little summary of just kind of where we're at on that and forward that along.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you much.
All right. Unless there's anything else, we will call this meeting to an end and adjourn. Seeing there's nothing else, it was great seeing everybody. And Ryan, when is our next meeting? October? Is that right? Oh, you're on mute still.
Yeah, so unless we have to meet in October, we won't. So, you guys meet every other month. So I think actually your next meeting is December. And so October and November would be just claims unless we need to meet for something. We do still have one storm board appeal that may be out there hanging. I've been told by the property owner it's going to be resolved. So if not, they'll have to proceed with the appeal. So Alex and I I'm waiting on some additional information on that. But if that works itself out, we'll see you guys in December.
Okay. Well, if you need us to meet before then, for purposes of the penalty discussion, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll just discuss it in December.
Okay. I think that's okay. With coronavirus, there is some restrictions out there for collections as well. So we probably want to be sensitive to that probably this year. So I think probably December will probably work. And then with that, then maybe we can put it in place. So as of January 1st, that would kind of be our policy. So I think that kind of timing works okay.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody, good job.
Thank you, everybody.